Your baby just laughed. Eyes closed, completely asleep, laughed. At nothing, at no one, at something happening only inside their own dreaming skull. You probably grabbed your phone to record it, which is the correct response. But then you stood there watching, and the question crept in. What are they laughing at? There is no joke, no tickle, no face making a funny expression, just a sleeping infant alone in a dark room laughing at something you cannot see and they will never remember. Sleep neuroscientists have spent the last 15 years studying exactly what is happening inside a sleeping infant's brain during those moments. And what they found doesn't just explain the laughter, it changes what you understand about how human memory is built. The obvious explanation is reflex. Newborns make all kinds of involuntary facial movements, grimaces, frowns, fleeting half smiles that disappear before you can be sure they happened. Random muscle activity firing with no meaning, the way a leg might twitch during a dream. That makes sense on the surface. Infant nervous systems are noisy, signals misfire, muscles activate without purpose. Except that by 12 weeks, something changes. The laughing sounds become vocalized, more complex. They begin clustering at specific moments in the sleep cycle rather than scattering randomly throughout the night. They start sounding less like a glitch and more like a response to something. That is not reflex, that is pattern. And when researchers started tracking what those patterns corresponded to inside the brain, what they found in the data was something nobody in the field anticipated. In 2019, a team at the University of Florida's Department of Neuroscience published findings in the journal Developmental Cognitive Neuroscience. Using high-density EEG, mapping electrical activity across the entire cortex in real time, they monitored infant brain activity during REM sleep while simultaneously recording every facial expression, vocalization, and body movement. What they were looking for was any measurable correlation between sleep phase brain activity and the emotional expressions occurring during it. What they found stopped the lab cold. The laughing was not random. It was synchronized with activity in the limbic system, the emotional processing center of the brain, firing in patterns that mirrored the exact same sequences active during waking positive social interaction. The same neural signature your baby produces when you smile at them and they smile back was replaying unprompted in the middle of the night. Plain language, your sleeping baby is not twitching. They are rehearsing joy, practicing the neural pathway for happiness using emotional experiences they have already had with you. And the emotional weight of that is worth sitting with. Every laugh you hear from that crib in the dark is not a glitch in an immature nervous system. It is your baby's brain replaying the feeling of being loved, strengthening the circuit so it holds. They're not dreaming about nothing. They are dreaming about you. But here's where it gets even stranger, because that is only part of what is happening. Researchers at Brown University's Infant Cognition Lab conducted a separate series of studies examining what content infants appear to process during REM episodes. Using detailed behavioral mapping in the waking hours before and after sleep, tracking which faces the baby engaged with, which interactions produced the strongest positive responses, which moments generated the most sustained eye contact, they identified a process developmental psychologists now call emotional consolidation. The term describes what happens when a sleeping infant brain organizes, sorts, and stores the emotional charge of recent experiences, like a librarian working the night shift, filing the day's most important moments into permanent storage. What they found is that the faces babies smile at during sleep are not random. They map onto the faces the infant interacted with most positively in the previous waking window. The stronger the engagement before sleep, the more frequent the REM expressions during it. Your baby is not just dreaming, they are filing you, sorting your face, your voice, your responses into the part of their developing brain that registers, this is safety, this is where I belong. Now I need to tell you about the study that changed how developmental psychologists understand infant sleep. And that sparked a quiet but serious debate about how much responsibility rests on the final waking hour of every day. It is called the Emotional Priming Study, conducted at Harvard's Laboratory for Developmental Studies. The setup was simple. Two groups of infants, same age range, same baseline temperament scores. Group 1 spent 30 minutes in positive, responsive, face-to-face interaction with a caregiver immediately before sleep. Group 2 was placed in their crib with minimal interaction, fed, changed, put down. Researchers monitored both groups through the entire sleep cycle. Group 1 showed 3 times the REM emotional activity, 3 times the sleep vocalizations, 3 times the limbic synchronization events. The pre-sleep experience was not just affecting mood, it was writing the content of the dream. Dr. Charles Nelson, who has spent 40 years studying infant brain development at Harvard, put the conclusion plainly. The emotional inputs of waking life in infancy are not separate from sleep. They are its raw material. Sleep is where the brain takes what you gave it and decides what to keep. You are not just putting your baby to bed, you are programming what their brain rehearses all night. And what researchers discovered about the long-term consequences of that rehearsal is the part of this story that changes everything. There is one layer to this that almost no one discusses outside of pediatric neuroscience journals, and it involves what those sleep laughing episodes are actually constructing inside your baby's brain, beyond emotional memory. Researchers at MIT's McGovern Institute for Brain Research studying infant neural development have found that the density of positive REM activity in the first 6 months correlates measurably with connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the circuit responsible for emotional regulation, impulse control, and stress resilience throughout adult life. What your baby rehearses in sleep, they wire into their brain. What they wire in infancy, they carry into adulthood. Every laugh during sleep is not just a memory being filed. It is a neural pathway being reinforced, a connection being made stronger, a piece of the architecture of who your child will become being laid in the dark while you think they are just sleeping. You are not a bystander in this process. You are the raw material, the source code, the thing the brain reaches for when it needs something worth rehearsing. So now I need to tell you about the warning. If your baby does not laugh in sleep, does not smile or vocalize emotionally during sleep cycles, or seems to move through sleep with consistently flat, expressionless stillness, that's worth paying attention to, not because something is necessarily wrong. Some infants are simply quieter sleepers, and every developmental timeline has its own rhythm. But pediatric neuroscientists have identified the presence or absence of emotional REM activity in the first 6 months as one of several early developmental markers worth noting, not diagnosing, noting at your next well-child visit or sooner if your instinct tells you sooner. The brain's plasticity window in these early months is never that wide again. What can be identified and supported at 14 months becomes significantly harder to shape at 24 months. The window doesn't close dramatically, it narrows quietly, without announcement. You have been watching your baby's face more closely and more consistently than any clinician ever will. If something about their sleep expressions feels different than what you expected, trust that signal. That is not anxiety, that is data. So the next time your baby laughs in their sleep, that tiny sound from the dark room that stops you mid-step, you know what's actually happening. Their brain is filing you, rehearsing you, reinforcing the neural pathway that says, this person is where safety lives. 200,000 years of evolution didn't give infants REM sleep by accident. It's the overnight shift where the work of becoming a person gets done, and you are the most important material it has to work with. If this changed how you see those small asleep moments, subscribe. There's more on this channel. Drop a comment. Was there a moment your baby laughed in your sleep and it stopped you cold? Because now you know exactly what was happening in that instant.